copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the county boardroom. And we have present today Commissioners Kelly, Klug, Warren, Mixon, and Burmeister, along with our County Administrator Bonnie Moore and our County Clerk Deb Hotaling. We also have our Treasurer Jeff Mikesel and our County Assessor Dan Pittman. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll start with the consent equalization agenda, which has items that are routine and expected to be adopted without dissent. Would anyone like to see any items removed from the consent agenda, or if not, a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Klug. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carries.
Item 5.1 is Resolution 2024-037, request County Board of Equalization to direct County Attorney to file petition with the Tax Equalization and Review Commission, TURC, under Nebraska Revised Statute 77-1333, subsection 10, for parcel 011608895, Dan Pittman, County Assessor.
Good afternoon. The income approach calculation in statute 77-1333 for rent-restricted housing does not result in a valuation at actual value. It is necessary to petition the Tax Equalization and Review Commission to consider the utilization of another accepted mass appraisal technique that would result in equalized value. I think you may have already talked to legal counsel about this petition, so if you have any questions, I brought my appraiser for rent-restricted housing with me in case there's any technical questions.
Any questions for Dan?
So you're going to ask, or we're going to ask for the removal of income approach completely?
No, we'll still use the income approach. It's just when on rent-restricted housing, because we have to stick with our actual numbers, sometimes our actual numbers mean zero value, and you can't have zero value. These things do sell for something, and so we have to get at real value. So we'll still use an income approach to value, but we use a market income approach.
And I guess and maybe you're the best to answer this, why are we requesting this and why wouldn't the assessor request it?
It's built into the code section that the assessor has to ask you to direct the county attorney to file the petition with TURC. It's simply an administrative action at this point. And then the taxpayer does have the opportunity to attend the TURC hearing to discuss what they believe that the correct valuation process should be for the property.
That's fine. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Kelly. Is there any discussion? Is anybody here on behalf of the parcel? Okay. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
Item 5.2 is tax corrections 17361 to 17372 and 17376, Dan Pittman, County Assessor.
Are there any questions on these?
Questions for Dan?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Klug, second by Commissioner Kelly. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carries.
All agenda items having been addressed as published, the Board of Equalization is adjourned and will reset for the Board of Commissioners.
Okay.
Welcome to the Sarpy County Board of Commissioners meeting. Today is still January 23rd, 2024. It's 3:04 p.m. We have present Commissioners Kelly, Klug, Mixon, Warren, and Burmeister, along with our County Administrator Bonnie Moore and our County Clerk Deb Hotaling. We'll start with Commissioners, Administrators, announcements, and comments, starting with Commissioner Kelly.
Nothing today, thank you.
No comment, thank you.
No comment.
Okay.
No comment.
No comment.
I would just like to say thank you to our Public Works Department. We've had a couple of weeks of crazy weather, and they're working around the clock for us. We really appreciate all they do. We will move on to the Consent Commissioners' agenda. Any items want to be removed from that agenda, or if not, a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Klug, second by Commissioner Kelly. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carries.
Item 5.1 is Resolution 2024-024, the 2024 Noxious Weed Control Plan adoption. Joshua Nelson, Noxious Weed Superintendent.
Hi, I'm Josh Nelson. Took over as the Noxious Weed Control Superintendent. Just wanted to meet in front of the board and show my 2024 control plan. This is submitted to the Department of Ag, and just wanted to do a quick few highlights with it for the 2024 season coming up. Just trying to change different styles of how things were done, and I'll be working towards creating new relationships and changing how the public perceives invasive species management. But that's all I got, unless you have a question.
Any questions for Josh?
Good to have you aboard.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Josh. Okay, item 5.2 is public hearing and resolution 2024-030, text amendments to Sarpy County zoning regulations, section 43, amendments and rezoning, applicant Sarpy County Planning and Building Department, Jason Kubicek, planner.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So this proposed text amendment is the result of a proposal to operate a sand mining operation, which will be discussed in a later agenda item. Per the Sarpy County zoning regulations, mining operations are only allowed with a special use permit in the ag zoning district. So as a result, the parcels currently zoned light industrial on this property are proposed to be rezoned to ag, so they can go for the special use permit. This text amendment will allow that rezoning to the ag zoning district for parcels that are not a lot of record. So when and if this parcel is ready to be developed, platting and rezoning will be required at that time. Staff is recommending approval of the text amendments to the Sarpy County zoning regulations, section 43 amendments and rezoning as shown in attachment A. Let me know if you have any questions.
Okay. I don't think we were approved the item 5.1 resolution.
No,
So
you didn't.
I'm going to go back to that a minute before we take questions for Jason.
Okay, hold on, okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Mixon. Thank you
it's
for the
coming right
catch,
now. Hold
Commissioner
on.
Mixon.
No problem.
Okay, there we go. Okay, who seconded?
Gary.
As I said before, I
Okay.
just don't sleep in this corner.
You
I
gotta
was
be
just getting
watching
ready to
me
stop you.
at
I
all
thought we could
times.
go back one.
I need
Okay.
all the help I can get. Any discussion? Please vote.
Angie, did you vote?
My screen disappeared. I'm a
Okay, ayes
yes.
5, nays none, motion carried. All right, now you're on 5.2, correct?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So back to questions for Jason from the board before we open the public hearing. No questions, so this is a public hearing. Would anybody from the public like to be heard on this issue?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Patrick Sullivan representing what will be coming up shortly in conjunction with this. The applicant, both the landowner and the user of the to-be sand pit. We went through a lot of questions and answers going through this. This property was probably prematurely zoned as LI in the first place. And looking at trying to do a change in the amendment to then allow sand and gravel operations in LI would kind of open up a can of worms because you got LI all over the place. It made more sense for this to get back to ag, but then getting back to ag Platting it really didn't make sense because it'll have a different use and a different plat once the sand and gravel operation gets done. So, yeah.
Any questions for Mr. Sullivan? Anyone else from the public want to be heard on this item? I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Well, Mr. Sullivan, I figured what's the final use of the property? Usually it's a lake.
Well, yeah, typically you'll see that it's going to be a housing development or something like that. There is, it's going to play a little bit more out on how that area develops. Some of that area to the south of this actually is LI. There'll be some ways that we can do some separation and other things. It's fairly narrowed down in that area. But right now, that's kind of to be determined yet.
I'll second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Klug. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carries.
Item 5.3 is a comprehensive plan amendment to change the future land use map from light industrial to agricultural on 4 parcels that are legally described in the agenda item and generally located northeast of Highway 50 and Cornish Road, Sarpy County, Nebraska. Applicant Plains Sand and Gravel and Sarpy County Planning Department. Thank you, the clerk's office, for that version.
Well, it's a long one. The applicant is proposing a sand mining operation on 3 parcels generally located northeast of Highway 50 and Cornish Road, which is permitted with a special use permit in the Ag Farming District. One of the 3 parcels is currently zoned ag. The 2 parcels to the north are currently zoned light industrial and have a future land use of light industrial. For these 2 parcels to be rezoned to ag, the future land use designation must change from light industrial to agricultural. Sarpy County Planning is a co-applicant to change the future land use to ag for the 2 small adjacent parcels to avoid the creation of a conflicting future land use in this area. I kind of read through what I had for both the comp plan amendment and the rezoning. So if you want to read that as well, or however you want to handle that.
Sounds good. I can read in item 5.4, which is a rezoning from IL light industrial to LI to AG agricultural farming district on 2 parcels that are legally described in the agenda item and generally located northeast of Highway 50 and Cornish Road, Sarpy County, Nebraska. Applicant Plains Sand and Gravel. So does anyone have any questions for Jason on either of those 2 items? And it's a public hearing. Does any member of the public want to be heard on those 2 items, item 5.3 and 5.4?
No further comment unless you have questions.
Questions for Mr. Sullivan? Any other member of the public want to be heard? I'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion on 5.3.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Klug, second by Commissioner Warren. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carries.
Any member of the public want to be heard further on item 5.4? Close the public hearing on that matter and entertain a motion on 5.4.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Warren, second by Commissioner Klug. Any discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carries.
Item 5.5 is public hearing and resolution 2024-033, special use permit in the AG agricultural farming district to allow the extraction and processing of sand and gravel on 3 parcels that are legally described in the agenda item and generally located northeast of Highway 50 and Cornish Road, Sarpy County, Nebraska. Applicant Plans Sand and Gravel.
Looks like I'm missing some pieces of the exhibits that I had here, but I can continue without them if needed. Let me just see if they reload here. Okay. Okay, there they are. The following notes pertain to the application for a special use permit to operate a sand and gravel mining operation in the Ag Zoning District. Operating hours will be from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. Mining operations will last approximately 10 years. Mining will be phased, starting near the center of the subject property, with the final phase at the south end of the property. The plant will have approximately 5 to 10 employees on site during regular working hours. Material will be sold on the site year-round, and mining operations will typically stop in the winter months. There are 2 access points, one at the northwest corner of the site for the public and plant operations, and another at the southwest corner of the subject property. Approximately 50 to 70 trucks per day could enter and leave the site from the access at the northwest corner of the property. Applicant is working with the NDOT to make improvements at this access point, and sand mining operations are not to start without formal written approval granted from NDOT. The applicant has also finalized an easement with the Papio, Missouri NRD to cross the pedestrian trail, which will need to be filed with the Register of Deeds. The shop maintenance building is being proposed at the southwest end of the site. The building will need to comply with the Sarpy County floodplain regulations and adopt a building code in effect at the time of the building permit application submittal. Approximately 10 vehicles could be entering and exiting on a working day at this southeast entrance. Cars, road trucks, and other sand and gravel machinery are anticipated to use that access point. The subject property is within the City of Springfield's future growth area, and comments were received from them regarding screening from Highway 50. The applicant has submitted plans to include screening using landscaping and berming. The plans were included as attachments to the report. All conditions from the December 19th Planning Commission meeting that were to be met before this meeting have been addressed. Mining operations will comply with and operate under a floodplain development permit as described in section 29.5 of the Sarpy County zoning regulations, and the special use permit performance standards as described in section 40.5.1 of the Sarpy County zoning regulations. So staff recommends approval of the special use permit application, allowing the operation of a sand and gravel mining operation for as long as Plains Sand and Gravel is the operator and Advantage Development is the landowner. In the ag farming floodplain zoning district on the subject property listed on the motion in the recommendation report. Contingent upon the following: an approved floodplain development permit from the Sarpy County Planning Department for any development being done in the floodplain prior to the start of mining operations. Approval, and also approval of the proposed text amendment, which we read through earlier, and the rezoning. Staff makes these recommendations as the proposals with the comments and conditions as noted are consistent with and compatible with the surrounding area and with the overall comprehensive goals and objectives and in compliance with the Sarpy County zoning regulations. Please let me know if you guys have any questions.
Questions for Jason?
I have a question. It's already been addressed. We don't know what the site's going to look like after the mining's complete. Is that standard that we allow construction or operation to start without knowing what the end result's going to look like?
Well, what we did do, we don't necessarily have plans for a residential subdivision beforehand or any kind of future development plan. But what we did do, knowing that this is close in proximity to a number of projects, in the future, NDOT's widening of Highway 50 and the current MOPAC trail and OPPD running a line through here. We worked with those agencies to kind of understand what their projects might look like, and then also with the developer to ask them to make room for within their mining operation to have space for development of the houses, the roads, the utilities, what have you, as far as that goes, that is necessary for a development in the future. So we did try to look ahead with that. There was a submittal prior to this with potential residential, but that didn't end up going anywhere. So we just wanted to make sure that they had enough space that it wasn't taking up the whole area with lake, so that they didn't have room in the future.
Okay. Is there generally a lot of, during operations, mining operations, is there generally a lot of dust created by that?
I don't believe so. There are standards that they have to meet with the NDEE regarding dust and control. And we also have zoning, we have performance standards within the special use permit zoning regulation that allows us to require them to cut down on dust and those sorts of things.
On the hours of operation, it said 6 to 6, but it sounds like this is pretty much a summer operation, or at least a warm weather operation. So in the winter, there's no operation going on out there at all, like this time of year?
There will be sales of gravel and sand, so that operation will be year round.
Okay.
The rest of it, though, mining, I believe, and they can the applicant can speak better to this, but it has something to do with freezing up of the equipment.
And then my last point is that I read the Nebraska Department of Transportation's comments about we're not going to guarantee access if there's a widening that would preclude. I mean, is that a problem? And wouldn't that would be a problem for me if I was going to spend millions of dollars developing a site?
The comments were geared towards the access for mining operations. What I'm trying to say is that will be allowed for the life of the mine, is what they were committing to. And then after the life of the mine, the guaranteed access.
Oh, okay, I got you. Well, then that makes a little bit more sense to me. Okay.
What's the total acres of this site?
Yeah, it's a little over 100. I didn't have that number.
114 or something?
Yeah.
I don't see.
104?
Yeah.
So, okay, so half of it's gonna end up being a lake. It says proposed lake area, is that 50.6 acre?
Yeah, and I've heard from the applicant that you never know exactly what this is going to look like. This is estimated mining area, but
Okay. And then
because of the limits.
the shop building, and you have it on the others, it's right there. Okay, that's what I wanted to clear up. Okay, I couldn't see that. Oh, that's a lot better. Now I can see the arrows.
Yeah, it's small compared.
And then the property to the north, because, I mean, there's already access down here on the south piece, correct? That goes back toward the stuff along the river and everything? Is there an access point there or not?
That's there's a business down on the river down there.
Right.
And I think that's the access point there, but it's about a quarter mile south of, I think, of where that
Yeah, it's
planned
farther.
building.
It's farther south because there's a little lake, there's a little old sand pit. I think that's from, that's the one in Cass County. I can't.
Is that Cornish Road there, Jason? That's going into there?
That's
Yeah.
to the west is Cornish Road, from where the shop is. And this is the lightly used, sorry, in my comments I wasn't pointing this out, but this is the one that won't get used as often. Traffic will just be kind of limited to employees and equipment being worked on. The applicant did say that he was willing to kind of maintain that entrance. At Planning Commission, the homeowner down here was talking about it gets soft in that area. But and then this will be the main access point for operations and customers coming and picking up.
And is that their northern boundary, right where that access point is?
Yeah, right near that. And it is existing access, but it does need improvement.
So does the applicant or anybody involved with the applicant own the property to the north?
That I don't know. It was, yeah, I did have to ask the applicant
I
there.
was just curious.
And just one last question, is Plains Sand and Gravel, do they have any other operations in the county at this time?
I know they have experience, but I don't know that there's any others in the county. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions for Jason? This is a public hearing. Would any member of the public like to be heard?
Again, Patrick Sullivan for the applicant and the owner of the property. Just a couple things I wanted to point out. You had mentioned dust. One of the nice features about this gravel operation, as amongst others, is we're going to be immediately getting onto concrete instead of barreling 2 miles down gravel road. So I think that'll be a benefit. Dust, and let me back up a little bit. For some of the operational questions, Brian Bunkingham is here, who's the applicant in here for this, and will be operating it. And then Caleb Snyder with Lamper Nearson can answer technical questions if you have any of those. He's also in the audience. But typically, these really don't create a lot of dust. You're pulling up gravel from moist or in the lake, and then it goes through sorting screens. While it's in those sorting screens, it's typically still moist or wet, so that you're not going to see a lot of dust in the process. The applicant has agreed to go ahead and do that screening. I just want to kind of give you a little bit of a concept. For those of you who stay at 65 miles an hour, the speed limit, it's 36 seconds that you pass this property, and there's really nothing to screen from. In other words, there's no homes, there's no other areas. So despite that, the applicants agreed to go ahead and do the screening on there. One other thing, as you kind of listen through the process, and this is kind of an 11th hour request, that we should have caught earlier. If you look at the proposed approval, it does say so long as the owner and the applicant or the operator stay the same. I'm not really sure why that was put in there. We're trying to take care of floodplain permits, NDOT reports, and everything else, and this is just kind of one of the things that slipped through. I would prefer that we could make an amendment on that. As long as the special use permit is being complied with, I'm not sure that it matters who actually owns the property or who is managing the property. And if some type of sale or something came up, it would be an impediment to trying to get that sale done. Obviously, you can come in here and reapply, but every time you put a contingency into a purchase agreement, it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I would request an amendment that it be approved without any specificity as to ownership or management. And then I thought I had one other thing. I think that's really about it. As I said, I'll try to answer any questions that you might have. And again, we've got both from a technical and operational, we have people here. And I think as you go through this, I actually think they make for a nice deal. You end up creating more lake ground and so forth. And we're in short supply of these sand pits, and all of us got here today because these sand pits exist. So,
And I don't disagree with your last comments. I have just a comment on what you said before about the special use permit. When we're approving it the first time, we know who the applicant is and everything, and it's been vetted through. We have other special use permits. If we start not looking at that as we go along, we don't know what we're going to get later. It might prevent or hold up your sale a little bit, but the county or whoever, we don't want the change then to go downhill on us. So that's, I think those are the reasons in there, Mr. Sullivan.
I certainly understand that and from that aspect, but when we're getting a special use permit, it's a zoning issue, it's a use issue, and it really should run with the land and not be specific to ownership.
As long as the uses are consistent and uniform, I don't think it would really matter who the operator is. They're going to be held to the same standard, as the original applicant.
Correct, and you have remedies if there's an issue. Yep. Thank you. Any
Either
other-
Jason or county attorney, can you answer that question? What do we typically do, and is there any statutory requirement or?
I have that in there because it is typical that we keep the applicant as part of the operation. The landowner I put in there because that's usually the landowner and the applicant go together on special use permits, and this one was different, so I put that one in there.
Who would be the developer? Who would be the landowner would be the developer though, not the company that's doing the mining, right?
Well, the applicant is our
They're one and the
special use
same?
permit applicant is the operator of
Okay.
the mine, but I don't know about the statutory requirement of that, but that's just typical of what we've done in the past.
Any clue on that?
Any ideas from legal on that, or?
Legal comment.
You'll have to forgive me on this one, Commissioners. Kayla Hascoat typically handles this type of work, and she is out of the office currently. I'll try to find an answer for you, but if you could pause on this for the moment.
Just one consideration when you think of is we don't have a direct agreement with the thin person that's operating the facility. We have something that maybe have come through a sales agreement that the county's not a party to. So if we don't have a direct agreement, if it stays with the applicant itself, that's the applicant, and each person comes in and applies. If it's supposed to, maybe if it's supposed to run with the land, unless the county has that tagged on there specifically, we may not have that.
So we would need that provision to stay in order to,
Well, we either leave it with the applicant, and then each one has to come in and do it on their own. Like we say, we figure out who they are and what they are and whether they're going to stand up to these things or not. If we try to tag it to the land, I guess we have to figure out necessarily how to make that stick. Is my half-baked thought as I'm sitting here trying to listen to it.
what if we just required a notification if there were a change in either of those? Because we can pull the permit anytime we want, right? Yeah. So
Well,
what if we just required a notification?
This goes back to 2 weeks ago where I abstained from voting because the person that owned the land is related to me. He had to do certain things to help that person get the special use permit, which they worked with planning and everything. But it wasn't my cousin. He was just selling and needed that piece of it. But the applicant applied for the special use permit, got the special use permit, so that was all good. But I think, and yes, our remedy is on a special use permit at any point if they're not meeting their obligations, and I guess they just want to hear that from legal. If they're not meeting the obligations of the special use permit, we can take that away from them, correct? We can end the special use permit. But
That's
I would think that anyone in business would want to make sure that they're vetted and they would come before this board again and say, hey, I'm looking at purchasing this business and here's what I'm going to do, here's who I am, and make that their case. So it basically, yes, they would have to maybe come here and get a new approval, but now they can take over that special use permit. I don't think it's, although we don't issue this, but I don't think it's that much different than a liquor license in that respect. As far as when someone is buying and the new person has to apply and get that license. So I'm not a lawyer, I'm just giving you how I see this.
Is it reasonable from a timing perspective for us to table this for a week so we can get a better legal understanding internally?
If I could address the board again.
Sure.
We would just soon move forward on this and get this taken care of. And again, Alan Hands, who owns the property through one of his companies, is also here that I failed to introduce if you have any questions from him. But if you think about your zoning structure, you have, okay, ag zoning, and ag zoning says, here's permitted uses, here's special uses. So if I'm in farming and let's just say I'm feeding cattle, and that's a permitted use. I then sell it to Jim, who wants to do cattle, whatever. He doesn't have to come back to the board and say, we've had a change of ownership. The special use says, I gotta have an operational plan and I have to have a site plan. And as long as you approve that operational and site plan in the special use, that should run with the ground just like we do a permitted use. And so that's why I'm asking that we not have to go through that. And more importantly, if we violate it, or the next owner violates it, you have remedies. Where in the zoning world, if you don't like the way the guy's running it, but he has no operational plan or otherwise, you're stuck with the way the guy's operating as long as it's legal. So it's really an issue of, it's a use as long as you give us an operational plan and a site plan that we approve.
I think the only question I have on it, and I understand what you're saying, Mr. Sullivan, the only other question I have is the special use permit or designation. In this case, and I heard it being said, you would want it to run for a minimum of 10 years because that's how long you think the mine or the mining operation is going to last. Okay, I understand that. But the other side of it, in other special use permits that we have throughout the county, there's no guarantee on the time limit, and they don't run into, what's the word? They don't run
Perpetuity.
They don't run that way. They run based on a certain amount of time, et cetera, and things change over time. So.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Going back on the special use permit issue, they've been issued all kinds of ways. They're issued in perpetuity. There's a lot of different uses that you would say, well, they're going to do that for 50 years. And I rarely ever see a restriction on the ownership because it's a zoning matter. It's not a person matter in a sense.
Okay. I understand what you're saying.
Other questions?
So your specific request is that we approve this, but amend it to allow for a change of ownership.
Ownership or
So,
operation.
or maybe
Just remove that
restriction.
restriction. Remove that restriction.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's just for voting purposes, and I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the special use permit, removing that restriction.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Warren. Discussion? I don't have a problem with the amendment. I think it would be good to have a notification, though, of the change of.
Is that not required, Jason, a notification of a change of ownership on a special use permit?
No, this was, this line in here addresses the change in ownership, so there is no notification required at this point. But that could, that could suffice to be added there.
Well, I'll probably be going down there once a month just to check on it. So
That's good. I expect
you
that.
guys can rest assured that if there's a change of ownership, I'll be.
He's going to be picking up gravel to feed his pheasants.
Well, it would be nice to know who to contact in case of issue, so.
Yeah, but it would not be hard to find, just to drive down there and find out, I don't think it's a big deal. That's just me, but we'll see what everybody else thinks here in a second.
I'm going to ask one more time for legal to just, you heard our arguments or our discussion. What would you think?
Thanks, Commissioner Mixon. I did have the opportunity to browse the zoning regulations on special use permits. There is no requirement included in the regulations that the ownership remain the same throughout the special use permit. So you do have the legal ability to make this amendment if you want to. However, I do have to refer back to what John said and what you brought up earlier, Commissioner Mixon, that this is not a requirement that we have anywhere else. And if you choose to make this amendment, I would recommend that you include a notification provision just so that our planning department has a little bit of an easier time keeping track of this special use permit.
Thank you. I'm glad you had time to resolve that. I would be in agreement if you put the last piece that they said with the notification.
Any problem with that, Mr. Sullivan? I'd like to hear your side before we change the,
I really don't think that's a big deal at all, but I'd be notification of a change of operation. You'll automatically get a notification of change of ownership.
all right, that sounds good. I will amend my motion then to take that restriction out, but add a notification of change of ownership requirement.
I approve that in a second.
Motion to approve the amended resolution by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Warren. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carries.
Good discussion.
Item 6.1 is Resolution 2024-027, Contract Amendment Number 2 to the Professional Services Agreement previously approved by Resolution 2020-294 for engineering services for the 168th Street widening, Giles Road to BNSF Bridge, Project C-7721-01, for construction administration with Schemmer Associates for $182,246.80. Scott Bovick, Deputy Administrator.
Thank you, Commissioners. The County Board previously entered into an agreement with the Schemmer Associates to design the 168th Street project. That's a large project to expand 168th Street from Highway 370 to Harrison Street to 5 lanes. Again, an enormous project. And the board has also decided on a strategy to fund that project would be to go through and obtain federal funds, which is also a long process. And so as the team was working through options to continue to improve that corridor, we developed what we're calling here an interim capacity expansion on 168th Street and then in the 168th and Giles intersection. So what the project consists of is, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but this is to the north. This is a railroad bridge. 168th Street would receive an additional lane on the west side, and then there would be additional capacity added at the intersection, right turn lanes. The traffic signalization would be redone in that place, and then once that project's over, we would come through with an overlay over that project to make sure that the striping and everything makes sense for the traveling public. This is an agreement with Schemmer to oversee the construction management of this project. The amount is about $180,000. And the next item on your agenda that you'll see is the award of the bid to the contractor. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the Schemmer agreement or this project. I'll talk a little bit more in detail about the contractor's plans and the bid amounts in the next agenda item.
Is that a, Scott, on the very left side of the picture, is that a traffic circle on 168th? That little round?
Right there.
Yeah.
No, that's an at-grade intersection.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and this will be an at-grade intersection as well.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for Scott?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Klug, second by Commissioner Warren. Any discussion?
Just one question. Since that at-grade intersection just to the south of Giles Road is so close, is that a right-in, right-out, or are those full access?
It's a full access at this point. Someday that's an area that I know we're
Definitely.
going to have to look at.
If it becomes a 4-lane, even a 3-lane in that section, I don't see how it could be anything but a right-in, right-out.
Yeah, and I'm not showing a map further to the south, but then there's another access point down there. So I know that will be one of the challenges that the board will have as we pursue, the full expansion project. There's a lot of access points that'll change, some of them dramatically, which will have an impact on some of those properties, some of those developments. But I know that's something that the engineers are really trying to get their hands around as we pursue that larger project, right. Controlling access.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Please vote if you're able. I don't have a
I was
screen.
going to say, who made the motion? Nobody.
I made the motion, Jim.
I made the second.
All right, hold on. Let me put it in down here. I'll get it going. Jim, you're the second. All right. Okay, I'm just going to put A's. Are we all A's? We're stuck
Yes.
down here.
Yes.
Okay. A's 5, nays none, motion carried.
Item 6.2 is Resolution 2024-028, award the low bidder for the 168th Street widening Giles Road to BNSF Bridge, Project C-7721-01 to Graham Construction in the amount of $1,714,241.95. Scott Bovick, Deputy Administrator.
So we did take bids on this project. We had very favorable bids. It's been a very good bidding climate with some of the slowdown in the economy. Graham Construction is the low bidder. The team has already had a kind of a pre-construction meeting with the contractor. The bid that they provided was just under the engineer's estimate. I think the engineer's estimate was about 1.85, and this came in at about 1.75. One of the tricky things about this project is a very high traffic area, so there'll be lots of inconvenience, lots of construction happening in this area. There is, as part of this project, a 7-day window that they'll have to completely close the intersection to do the pours at 168th and Giles. And so I know the county engineer's office and our team will be working really closely with the contractor to make sure we know when that is, that we can communicate that to people, that we can make sure that we keep that full closure to a minimum. An important piece of doing this project now is because the board just last week applied to MAPA to work with the city of Omaha and Douglas County to improve Harrison Street from 156 to Highway 6 and to its ultimate 5 lanes. And while that's a long ways off, we know that when that project starts and there's closures and inconveniences there, it's important to have more capacity in this area for traffic to go through. The contractor's proposing a start date in late April. They may start sooner than that if they can, which is great. And then we've been clear with the contractor that they absolutely must be done by the end of July. There's a new elementary school just right where my cursor is, there's going to be open for the fall of 2024 school year. And so we want to make sure that this project is complete before that school is open, but before the back to school traffic happens generally. And then I would say in this area that you see here, there is some developments that's proposed there, so that development would contribute towards the cost of this project once they come in, but I think that the development's still in the planning stages. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
So do you have any performance incentives or performance, non-performance by the time to get the school open?
We don't have
Penalties?
performance incentives, but we do have liquidated damages that are part of every contract. And so as we start to approach a date and things aren't getting done, we're able to put the contractor on notice that we'll be assessing liquidated damages. Hopefully we're early on. We can communicate with them constantly and regularly to make sure that we don't get into that position, because a lot of times when you're there, it's almost too late. So, again, if they can get started early, and have the good weather, April, May, June, July to work, hopefully they'll be able to get it done by then. We're confident they can, and they've committed to it. So.
Well, Commissioners Klug, I think, is that in your area, Commissioner? Or is that Mr. Moore?
That's in mine now.
Well, his phone will be ringing quite a bit if it's not done.
Yeah, and to your point, high visibility, high inconvenience, and so I know the communications team is going to be plugged in to help make sure that we're communicating to folks, and it's, again, an advantage of allowing the contractor to close that intersection for 7 days, very much, a huge inconvenience, but if they can get in there and get that done faster, then that makes it cleaner for everybody.
So the good point that you said earlier, you've already started to construct, started doing some of the planning to make sure all of this happens, and that's good, because you never know what the weather's going to do, what we're going to get or not get for construction days. So I think obviously working well and giving them the access and what they need to do to get the job done, so we're all on board to make it happen.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Klug, second by Commissioner Warren. Any discussion? Please vote.
I just want to comment, construction manager at risk, right? No, just construction management? Or-
Just construction management and observation. Yeah,
Okay.
construction engineering, the construction manager at risk or construction manager general contractor, this project wouldn't probably make sense for that.
It's too small.
Yeah, so design, bid, build is the
Okay,
process we're
thank
using
you.
here. Yep.
Any other questions or discussion? Please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carries.
Item 6.3 is Resolution 2024-035, Sarpy County Policy and Procedures Manual, PPM revision to Section 3, Classification and Compensation with the addition of a merit award policy. Mary Davis, HR Director.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Commissioner Kelly had requested that we take a look at the merit pay policy, and so these revisions would change the way we currently handle our merit pay. This first resolution deals with the Personnel Policy and Procedures Manual, which covers your unclassified members. That's your department heads, assistant directors, county attorneys, public defenders, emergency management staff, and bailiffs. The primary change would be we would move from a step-based merit pay system to an award system, which would be handled once a year, a lump sum payment. It would be aligned with the annual budget cycle. Recommendation is 1.5% of the workforce would be eligible for a merit award of 3%. These nominations would be due into HR by June 1st. With the merit awards, they would be reviewed by a committee appointed by the HR director with recommendations to the Board of Commissioners for approval. Those awards would be granted in July of each year. And like I said, the most significant change is that it moves from a merit pay step system to a one-time annual payment for the employees. Currently, the 1.5% would be roughly 10 employees. We currently have 683 full-time staff members, and so that would be about 10 employees would receive that award. Any questions?
Questions for Mary?
Just a couple comments. So Commissioner Klug and I served on a personnel policy committee, and this is where this initiative started. And I will add that it's probably a work in progress at this point, in that we have to finalize how we're going to select people. And but we had to set a marker somewhere, and I think 3% is a pretty nice bonus, and 1% of the workforce is a small enough number that it will mean something. As you know, we don't have pay for performance, right? Never have, can't cross that bridge. We got too many collective bargaining units, blah, 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 blah. But the downside of that is the upside of that is people get structured pay raises every year. But the downside of that is it's really hard to recognize the heroes. You can bring them up in public and pat them on the back and shake their hand and give them a $1.25 certificate. Says they're the employee of the month. But the gift that most people appreciate is the one that goes into their wallet. So I think this is a good approach, but it's not the final approach. Obviously, we have some things to work out, and mostly Mary, on how we select these people and how we call for nominations and who serves on the selection panel. And then once those individuals are identified, how do we actually recognize them? And I would like to see something very public and very, appropriate for somebody that's being recognized for exemplary performance. So, to me, like when I was in the military, they'd pin a medal on your chest or something, which meant a lot more than money to me at the time. But this is the best we can do because we don't have medals to point. But I think monetary recognition is pretty substantial. And but again, work in progress. We'll see how it goes after a year, and we'll tweak around the edges to make it better and something everybody be happy with.
How does the 1.5% compare to years past? Do we know? Or, so if we're limiting it to effectively 10 employees,
Right, in 2023, we had roughly 13
okay.
merit awards or merit steps granted. It was slightly lower in the previous years. You know, I have talked to, so department heads and elected officials have reached out and we discussed the 1.5%. And they would like to see that extended to more employees than just 10, just due to the size of our workforce. So they'd like the board to consider raising that number a little bit.
I just would point out too that when Mary pitched this proposal to our personnel policy board, very supportive of it. They thought it was a great idea. It's best practice in most major employment organizations. So even though we didn't quite have all the ink dry on the concept, they were very supportive, and I think that speaks for the fact that they think it's a fair and good program.
And you know, one of the other questions we had was who's going to make up this committee? And you know, it would be my recommendation that it's reflective of all of our employee groups. You know, you've got department heads, elected officials, classified, unclassified employees, union employees, non-union employees. So it really should be reflective of the employees that we have here on staff. So we're still working out those details, but that would be my recommendation on that piece.
And then will there be like a criteria, something for that committee to review and choose?
Yes.
I hate to ask that in public, but what are your thoughts on 2%?
Well, I started at 2%, but this is my rationale. It has to be meaningful. And we have a lot of employees that make around $50,000 a year. And if you give them a 2% bonus, that's $1,000. It's just not insignificant. But generally on bonus payments, 40% is withheld for taxes. And so by the time you get done taking the taxes out, I mean, they got enough to fill their gas up with their car up with gas.
2% of the workforce, not.
Oh,
not
yeah,
low
yeah, I
contributed
see
to.
what you're saying. No, I mean, you know, it's just an arbitrary number. I looked at the statistics that you asked the question about, and 10 was about the number over the years. So I said, okay, well, that's about 1.5% based on our current workforce. So there's no deep thought other than that. It was just sort of a whack. So that's kind of goes back to my comment. This is kind of a work in progress, but if you think it should be higher, then you certainly should make that a amendment, and we'll vote on it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve with changing 1.5% of the workforce to 2%. I've just seen situations where that's come up to where people that have deserved something have been cut out because of a policy that was needed to be worked on a little bit.
So it'll be an additional raise for 2% of the employees.
It's moving from 1.5%.
But it'll be a guaranteed conditional raise for 2% of the employees.
No, it's not a raise. It's just a one-time payment.
And it's moving it from what, 10 employees to what, like 12 or 14, yeah. So it's just.
So what if I guess what I'm getting at, I like the fact that it's a narrower number, that it's a significant thing, that you wrestle with people to get it. I mean, why not just say all the employees, everybody can apply, and we'll narrow it at some point in time? I mean, it's an arbitrary, whether it's 1.5% or 2%. I mean, it's just up in the number of people that are guaranteed to get it. So what if the high standards aren't met? Do we still just automatically give out 2%?
It's not guaranteeing that anybody gets anything. It's just saying that if we had a 14th employee, or if we had an 11th or 12th employee that was really knocking out of the park, that the people that manage those employees aren't constrained with giving that bonus.
So is that worded that it's not going to be a guaranteed 1.5% of the employees, or a guaranteed 2%?
Is it worded up to, Mary? Or is it worded 1.5%, like I mean, maybe the
It says,
verbiage should say up to, you know, and then it's up to the discretion of the board to determine if they want to give all 14 or just whatever, 10, or maybe it's 12,
That's how I
maybe
interpreted
it's
it.
13.
It was up to, it wasn't we're guaranteeing that 10 to 14.
It says merit award recipients cannot number more than 1.5%.
And that's what I'd like to change to 2, just to,
So you would say cannot number more than 2%, right?
correct?
Okay, that's your motion?
Yes. And that's in line with 2023 where we had 13.
Yeah, okay.
Motion to approve amended resolution by Commissioner Klug. Is there a second?
And that gets you to how many employees? I'm sorry.
14.
14, up to 14, or, you know.
Well,
okay.
it could be.
Right, it could
be
be
less.
7, it could be 5, it could be,
Well, it's going to be up to the board. I mean, the way, Mary, if I have this right, the way it's going to work is there's going to be a committee that you will chair of appropriate employees across the spectrum of the county that are going to select the most deserving.
Correct.
And if we only have 6 candidates, then probably all 6 will be referred to the board, but then ultimately the board has to approve it, right? So to me, there's several layers of transparency and there's several layers of checks and balances to make sure that we're not watering this down to something because we can. It needs to be, to me, it needs to be significant. It should be significant. And, you know, picture in the paper, you know, name on the website and that kind of stuff. And, you know, I'd love to see their families here and, you know, and all that, because I think it should be a big deal.
and all employees are eligible.
Yes,
All full-time.
except
I'm
commissioners.
sorry, all employees
all
are
right.
eligible.
Commissioners are exempt, no. I'm just kidding, but obviously elected officials and commissioners will not be considered.
Is there a second to Commissioner Klug's motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Kelly. Is there further discussion? Please vote.
I'm a yes. It's not showing up on.
You're not on, Dave, okay.
There we go.
There we go. Ayes 5, nays none, motion carries.
Item 6.4 is Resolution 2024-036, Personnel Rules and Regulations Revision for the Classified Service, Rule 11, Regulation 1, Compensation Plan Administration. Mary Davis, HR Director.
Yes. So this revision is the same with the merit pay. We did take this to the Personnel Policy Board originally at 1% of the workforce up to 2.5% salary adjustment. Since that time, we've discussed modifying that, so it would be my recommendation that we follow the same as the policy that you just passed for the unclassified staff.
I'll make a motion to approve as previously amended by Commissioner Klug.
Second.
Motion to approve the amended resolution made by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Klug. Any discussion? Questions? Okay, please vote.
Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks, Mary.
All agenda items having been addressed as published, the Board of Commissioners is adjourned. We'll reset for the Board of Corrections.
It's 4:12 p.m. on January 23rd, 2024. I'd like to call the Sarpy County Board of Corrections meeting to order. A notice of the Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of County Boardroom. Good, everybody. All commissioners are present, as well as Board Administrator Bonnie Moore and myself, Kendra Kaler, representing the County Clerk and Register of Deeds. I will be acting as Board Chairman until a new one is elected. First item on the agenda is 2.1, Resolution 2024-039, Election of Chairman of the Sarpy County Board of Corrections for calendar year 2024. Could someone please make a motion?
Motion to elect Commissioner Angie Burmeister as the chairman of the Board of Corrections.
Second.
You guys seeing your votes?
There it is.
Klug, there you are. Ayes 5, nays none, motion carried.
Perfect. And then Commissioner David Klug will be the Vice Chairman for the Board of Corrections for calendar year 2024.
Yay, congratulations, everyone. Appreciate it.
I was a little worried there that Don might be nominating someone else. He was a little slow, but
I had to think, no. I'm sorry. I'm a little slow on the uptake this afternoon here. I'm under medication here for a cold.
I appreciate the nomination and the opportunity to work with you all again. We'll move to item 3.1, minutes, November 28, 2023.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Klug, second by Commissioner Kelly. Any discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we got A's 4 and then Abstain Mixon.
If I wasn't here, I
You were not
guess.
here, sir.
Okay, then I am abstaining.
Very good.
Item number 4 is our quarterly jail inspection.
All right. 30 meetings, so I got to hit the road.
4:14.
At 4:14, we recessed to take the quarterly jail inspection. It's now 4:41 PM, and we'll reconvene the meeting and then adjourn. All agenda items having been addressed as published, the Board of Commissioners is adjourned.
Good job.
Thank you.